fine art that's decorative art. Um, you know, and while there can be all sorts of discussions about where the edges of these categories are, and they can be really interesting discussions. To talk about it as if it's real is madness. It baffles the hell out of me. So, I watched the Silent Hill movie and I loved it, and I thought it was great, and I just thought it was a great piece as a movie and as an homage to the games. Others watched it and hated it, thought it was a travesty. We watched, for the purposes of discussion, the same images on a similar screen created through a similar process of projection, so that the actual optical input and aural input is pretty similar, allowing for variations in eyes and equipment, right? So on a physical level, it was the same movie we both watched. But as we enter discussion on the matter, it becomes clear that if you take away the assumption as the starting point, if you take away the assumption a priori that it is the same thing we're discussing, if you take that away from the discussion and you hear us talking about it, it's clear as day that we're talking about two different movies. We are literally talking about two different movies. They may have been kind of triggered by the same event, but the experience is the movie. The celluloid, or whatever they use in place of celluloid these days, is not the movie. The director's screenplay is not the movie. The photons in the air, that's not the movie. The movie is the experience. And your experience may be that you spent an hour and a half watching complete shit. And my experience can be that I was transported to a world that felt real and visceral, and that just really moved me and affected me in ways that I find appealing. Different. So at the risk of babbling on and on, to summarize, art is the experience, the interface between the perceiver and the object, or what passes for an object, like a performance art. It's not an object per se, but we'll say between the perceiver and the physical sensory input triggered by what the artist has created. And this also means that the artist and the viewer can have different ideas about what something means, and that neither one necessarily is wrong. I write, among other things, and people can read my work and say, well, this obviously represents your relationship to the death of your father, and is a profound metaphor for a worldview tainted by the underlying fear that none of it has any permanence. And I could say, well, this is just kind of a funny story about an ogre standing on the doorstep of a modern New York apartment. And we're both right, except that I'm describing the interface between that short story and me, and this other theoretical critic is describing the interface between that story and him or her, and actually he or she is taking their knowledge of me as part of that process. My hand gestures probably neither help nor hinder. So artists who get up in arms about you've got to interpret my stuff the way I say, I think they're a little confused. Personally, I create something and I consider it like I'm setting it free into the universe. I'm not even going to control how someone uses it. You want to take my book, shred it, use it to make papier-mâché models of the Pope's penis, and float it down the Thames. Fine. Glad to have been a part of that. I would love it if my work has as interesting an outcome for most of the readers. I suspect very few. It's just baffling. I have nowhere further to go. I've made my point, and I'm continuing just in various forms of. It's baffling to me. It just is. And this view of mine in no way detracts from my enjoyment or appreciation of art. Knowing that I have a hand in kind of deciding whether it's good or bad, it doesn't take any appreciation away from the art or from my appreciation of the artist. I don't know. This also comes a bit from my worldview, because I think that even in things that are not art, the same sort of subjectivity applies. And the fact that we're all on a similar page doesn't mean we're on the same page. I don't even know if this camera exists. I just have the sensory input that my brain interprets as the camera. We all do that sort of thing, and we take sort of a shortcut by saying this camera is there. But if you spend some time thinking about it, I find it useful to me to just spend a little time pondering that, just reminding myself that I don't actually live in a physical world. I live in sensory input, which meshes well with things like Buddhism and Christian Science and a lot of New Age foo-foo-rah, but I like a lot of New Age foo-foo-rah. I like saying foo-foo-rah. I really want a nice, concise way to wrap this up, but there just isn't going to be one.